The sun was setting behind the tall whispering pines, painting the sky in soft shades of peach and lavender. In a quiet meadow at the edge of the forest, a sleepy bear named Bramble stretched his furry paws and let out a gentle yawn. He wasn't like the other bears who roamed around with loud steps and gruff voices. Bramble loved calm evenings, gentle breezes, and slow picnics that felt like dreams drifting under the stars. That night felt special, as if the forest itself was humming a lullaby. The grass shimmered with dewdrops, and fireflies floated like golden lanterns in the air. Bramble carried a little basket, woven from twigs and lined with soft moss, that held his favorite snacks: warm honey rolls, berries kissed by the rain, and a flask of chamomile tea. He padded softly toward a secret clearing he called his picnic meadow, where the stream sang quietly and the moonlight spilled across the ground like silver silk. As he walked, every step seemed to grow slower, calmer. The air smelled of pine needles and sweet earth after the day's sunshine. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted gently, as though wishing Bramble a peaceful evening. He hummed back in his low, sleepy voice, smiling to himself. His fur ruffled with the breeze, and he felt the kind of happiness that only comes when the night is soft and full of magic. When Bramble reached the clearing, he spread out a patchwork blanket, the kind stitched from fallen leaves and soft wildflowers, carefully arranged. He placed his basket in the center and sat down slowly, as if even the act of sitting was part of the evening's quiet ceremony. The sound of the stream, the glow of the fireflies, and the steady rhythm of his own breathing all wrapped around him, creating a little pocket of peace in the middle of the forest. He sighed deeply, shoulders loosening, eyes blinking slower and slower. The picnic wasn't about food, really, it was about stillness, about savoring the moment, about knowing that the stars above were keeping watch while he rested below. And as he picked up his honey roll, taking the smallest, softest bite, he whispered to the meadow, "Tonight, let's have a gentle feast, just for the dreamers." As Bramble sat on his patchwork blanket, nibbling his honey roll, the forest began to stir with quiet footsteps and soft rustling. The moon had risen higher, casting a silver glow across the meadow, and it seemed as though the light itself was inviting guests to join him. Out of the tall grass came a pair of curious eyes, wide and glimmering. It was Pip, a tiny field mouse with whiskers that twitched like violin strings. He scurried closer, carrying a crumb of cheese almost as big as his head. "Evening, Bramble," Pip squeaked softly. "I heard you were having a picnic. I brought my best snack to share." Bramble's heart warmed. He patted the blanket beside him. "Come sit, little one. Every dreamer deserves a place at the table." Pip settled in, setting his cheese gently down, and together they listened to the bubbling stream. Soon after, the gentle hoot of an owl echoed overhead. Down swooped Luna, the snowy owl, her feathers catching the moonlight like powdered diamonds. She landed gracefully on the edge of the blanket, her eyes glowing with calm wisdom. "A midnight feast?" she asked in her velvety voice. "I'll bring stories instead of food. They'll fill our hearts more than our bellies." Bramble nodded happily. A story is always welcome. One by one, more friends appeared. A family of hedgehogs toddled out from the bushes, rolling berries their tiny paws had collected. A pair of rabbits brought crisp leaves and clovers. Even a shy fox peeked out, carrying a single apple as an offering. No one was turned away. Bramble's picnic meadow became a place where every creature, big or small, felt safe. The blanket grew crowded but cozy, the basket filling not just with food but with laughter, soft chatter, and the sparkle of friendship. Fireflies hovered above like glowing lanterns, casting a dreamy golden light across their gathering. Luna began her stories, her voice steady and low, weaving tales about the stars above, how each one was a lantern carried by dream spirits to guide sleepy hearts home. Bramble closed his eyes for a moment, letting her words wash over him. The stream sang, the wind whispered, and the forest seemed to lean in, listening too. The sleepy bear realized this wasn't just his picnic anymore, it was a celebration of togetherness, of quiet kindness under the moon's gentle watch. And though everyone spoke in hushed voices, laughter still bubbled up, soft and contagious, like ripples across a pond. Bramble thought to himself that no dream could ever feel as comforting as this night, where food was shared, stories were told, and every heartbeat slowed to the rhythm of the meadow's lullaby. The meadow picnic had grown into something warm and unforgettable, but just as Luna finished another soft story about starlight rivers in the sky, a hush fell over the gathering. A cool breeze swept through the grass, carrying with it the smell of damp earth. The fireflies blinked a little faster, almost as if they could sense what was coming. Then, with the gentlest of taps, a raindrop landed on Bramble's nose. He blinked in surprise. Another drop fell onto Pip's cheese, leaving a tiny wet circle. Then came another, and another. At first, the animals worried. "Oh no, will the picnic end?" whispered one of the hedgehogs, curling slightly into a ball. Bramble looked around at his friends huddled on the blanket, the moonlight now blurred by a veil of soft clouds. He knew this could be the moment when the night faded away, but instead he smiled and rumbled in his deep, gentle voice, "Rain doesn't have to end our gathering. It can make it even more magical." The rain began as a drizzle, a soft patter that made the grass glisten and the berries shine like jewels. The leaves above swayed, catching droplets that fell in a rhythm as soothing as a lullaby drum. Bramble carefully opened his big picnic basket once more and pulled out a small lantern he had tucked inside. With a soft click, it glowed warmly, casting a golden light across their circle. The fireflies joined in, circling the lantern, until the meadow looked like a sky of stars had fallen to earth. To keep everyone cozy, Bramble gathered branches that had been stacked nearby and built a small fire pit, arranging it with care. Soon, a gentle fire crackled, blending with the sound of raindrops. The smoke rose in delicate spirals, carrying the smell of pine and comfort. The animals all shuffled closer, their eyes reflecting the firelight. The sound of the rain tapping against the ground around them created a harmony with the fire's soft hiss, turning the night into a song. Pip nestled under Bramble's fur for warmth, while Luna spread her wings wide to shield the rabbits from a heavier splash of rain. The fox curled its tail around the hedgehogs, and together they formed a circle of warmth and trust. Even the shyest creatures, who had been sitting at the edges of the picnic, stepped closer to join. The rain no longer felt like an interruption, it became part of the story, weaving itself into the memory of the night. As the fire glowed brighter, Bramble took out a jar of honey and drizzled it over the apples and berries. The rain cooled the air, making the sweetness taste even more comforting. Luna's voice rose again, steady and calm, telling a story about a bear who once followed a rainbow and found not gold, but a meadow filled with friends just like this. Her words blended with the rain's rhythm, creating a story song that everyone carried in their hearts. Soon, the creatures weren't speaking much anymore. They simply listened, to the rain, to the fire, to the whisper of the forest. Their eyelids grew heavy, their breaths slower. Bramble leaned back against a log, his fur damp but warm, his eyes closing with a content sigh. Around him, his friends drifted into dreams, the rain a blanket of sound, the fire a gentle heartbeat, and the night a cradle rocking them softly into sleep. The rain deepened into a steady rhythm, like 1,000 tiny drums playing across the leaves and meadow. The once gentle drizzle now became a curtain of silver threads, falling endlessly from the dark sky. The little fire sputtered but held strong, its sparks glowing defiantly against the storm. Around it, the circle of animals pressed closer together, their warmth and trust weaving tighter with each passing drop. Bramble opened his heavy eyes, glancing at the lantern glowing faintly against the storm's breath. The world outside their circle looked hazy, blurred by rain and mist. But inside, under the blanket of firelight and friendship, it felt as though they were wrapped in a dream. Pip murmured sleepily, his tiny paws tucked beneath his chin. "It's like the clouds are singing to us." His words melted into a yawn, then into silence. The storm grew louder, yet strangely it didn't frighten anyone. Instead, it became part of their lullaby. The fox's tail twitched as it dreamed, the hedgehogs nestled tighter, and the rabbits shifted so they could all touch shoulders, as if tethered together in sleep. Luna lifted her wings once more, but not to shield them from rain. This time she stretched them wide like a canopy, glowing faintly under the lantern light, giving the illusion of a shelter made from moonlight itself. Bramble's deep voice, though nearly a whisper now, drifted through the sound of the storm. "Close your eyes, little ones, let the rain wash your worries away." His words were slow, drawn out, heavy with drowsiness. He wasn't telling a story anymore, he was guiding them into dreams. And one by one, each creature's breathing slowed until only the steady sound of rainfall and the soft crackle of the fire remained. But then something magical happened. As the storm continued, the animals began to dream together. It was as if the rain's rhythm stitched their thoughts into one great tapestry. Pip found himself walking through a meadow where every blade of grass glowed like emerald glass. The hedgehogs tumbled beside him, giggling in harmony. The rabbits hopped ahead, leading toward a shimmering arch that stretched across the dream sky, a rainbow made not of colors, but of pure light and song. Bramble lumbered behind them, his steps slow, strong, steady. He carried the warmth of the fire within him, and wherever his paws touched, flowers bloomed instantly, glowing softly against the dream earth. Luna soared above, her wings leaving trails of stars behind her, painting the dream sky with constellations that danced in rhythm to the rain outside. Together, they walked beneath the glowing rainbow. The rain in the dream was no longer wet, it was music, each drop a bell-like note. They weren't huddled under clouds anymore. They were wrapped in light, in calm, in belonging. For the first time, even the smallest animals who had always stayed at the edges felt like part of something greater, something whole. Back in the meadow, their real bodies slept deeply, breathing in time, hearts beating as one. The rain still poured, the fire still glowed, and the lantern flickered softly, but inside their shared dream, the storm had transformed into a lullaby so beautiful that it carried them further into peace than they had ever known. The dream carried them farther still. In the quiet place where rain and firelight met, the shared vision began to change, and each animal suddenly realized the meadow beneath their paws and claws had shifted into something magical. The grass glowed brighter, shimmering with hues that seemed to hum like quiet music. A table rose gently from the earth, not wooden, not stone, but woven from moonbeams and threads of rain itself. It stretched endlessly, and yet somehow it felt small enough for everyone to sit close together. Pip blinked wide-eyed. "A picnic," he whispered into the dream. His voice rippled through the shared vision like a pebble dropped into a pond. At once, the table filled with foods they had only ever imagined. Honeycombs dripped golden rivers across sparkling plates, berries bigger than fists gleamed like jewels, loaves of bread steamed as though they had just been baked in the heart of a mountain oven. The hedgehogs squeaked in delight as roasted chestnuts rolled toward their paws, perfectly warm and glowing from within. Bramble, slow and steady, sat at the head of the table, though there was no hierarchy here. His paw rested on the glowing table, and with every beat of his heart, more food blossomed before them, acorns dipped in caramel, fresh fish baked in leaves, mugs of warm milk topped with foam that swirled like clouds. "Eat," he rumbled gently. "Tonight, the storm feeds us." Luna landed softly at one end, her wings folding around her like a cloak. The lantern glow followed her here, flickering into tall candles that filled the dream air with soft light. She lowered her beak to the feast, then lifted her gaze, watching with calm pride as the smallest creatures filled their bellies without hesitation. For once, none of them had to wait. None of them had to fight for scraps. The dream world gave equally to all. The rabbits reached for bunches of glowing carrots that shimmered with rainbow light. The fox, sly and quick, pretended to sneak a roasted quail into his paws, but here, no one scolded, no one snapped. Instead, laughter erupted, gentle and contagious, echoing like bells through the dream. Even Bramble chuckled, a deep rumble that shook the glowing plates and sent sparks of joy through the feast. Outside, their bodies remained curled beneath the storm. The fire still crackled, the rain still sang, but their bellies rose and fell in perfect rhythm, as if they were feasting in their sleep. And yet, somehow, the warmth of full stomachs reached their real bodies too. None of them stirred hungry in the cold night. As the feast slowed, and the table glimmered down to crumbs and glowing drops of honey, Bramble raised his head. "This is not food alone," he said softly. "This is what it feels like when no one is left out. When the circle holds every soul." His words, heavy and wise, planted themselves deep into the dream and into each heart, like seeds that would bloom even when the storm ended. The dream shifted again. Candles melted into stars, the table into mist, and the animals found themselves lying once more in the soft meadow of the vision, bellies full, spirits light. The storm outside began to soften, matching their calm. The rain was no longer fierce, it had become a whisper, as though the sky itself had been lulled to sleep by their shared dream. The meadow of their dream began to dissolve into a quiet dawn. Each glowing star blinked softly and lowered itself until the sky outside matched it, pale and soft with the first threads of morning light. Slowly, each animal stirred, their fur damp from the night rain, their bodies warm from the fading fire that had somehow lasted until the final drops stopped falling. Bramble stretched, his heavy limbs slow but steady, and let out a deep, peaceful sigh. The fire's last ember glowed in his reflection, and he whispered, "The storm is gone." His words were more than an observation, they were a kind of promise. The hedgehogs uncurled from their mossy blankets, yawning with squeaks that filled the air like tiny trumpets. The rabbits hopped lightly, shaking raindrops from their fur as though shrugging off the storm itself. Pip awoke last, blinking drowsily, his tiny body pressed against Bramble's side as though he had always belonged there. They looked around at what remained of the night. The campfire pit, dark and wet, smelled faintly of smoke and honey. The storm had washed the forest clean. Every leaf sparkled with droplets that caught the rising sun, making the whole clearing glow as though 1,000 tiny gems had been scattered by unseen hands. The air smelled of earth, fresh and alive, and every breath carried warmth instead of chill. Luna still perched nearby, her feathers damp but her eyes gleaming. She stretched her wings, scattering beads of water into the dawn, and said, "You see? Not every storm is meant to break you. Some storms are meant to teach you that you can outlast them." Pip tilted his head. "Did we really share that dream?" he asked. His voice was sleepy but full of wonder. Bramble chuckled softly. "Sometimes dreams are more real than waking. Sometimes they remind us what waking should feel like." The group began to gather their things, not much, for the forest provided nearly everything, but each movement was slower, gentler, touched by the calm of the night's magic. Even the fox, usually quick to dash, lingered with a softened grin as he pawed at the wet ground. The hedgehogs collected the last chestnuts with care, while the rabbits twitched their noses toward the scent of dew-drenched grass. Bramble placed a paw on Pip's shoulder. "You were brave, little one. Storms don't vanish because we wish them to. They vanish because we endure." Pip smiled, though shyly, his chest swelling with a courage he had never noticed before. He looked to the others and realized he had not simply survived the night, he had shared it, grown through it, and been carried by it. Together, they set off into the glistening forest, the path ahead soft and shining with new light. Each step felt lighter, as though the ground itself was thanking them for their patience. Behind them, the meadow and the campfire faded into memory, but the warmth in their hearts lingered, like a fire that would never go out. As they walked, Bramble's voice rumbled again, this time almost to himself but still reaching each ear, "There will be more storms. But now, none of us will face them alone." And so, under a sky that promised clear days ahead, the sleepy bear and his friends carried the memory of a rainy night campfire that turned into a dream feast, a reminder that even the fiercest nights can end with dawn, with laughter, and with bonds that last forever.